What's up people, Josh from JRM Productions here. Welcome back to another video. Today's video is a very fun one. I'm going to be reacting to my Premier League predictions that I made all the way back before the first game of the season in August of 2024. I've checked these predictions kind of sporadically throughout the year. I know I've had some really good shouts, also some pretty bad ones too, but we're going to look through them and, see if I had a decent idea of how the Premier League season would go, and see what ultimately I thought would happen that might or might not have happened. But if you enjoy my content, if you enjoy what I'm trying to do on this channel, please, as always, leave a like. It's so appreciated. Any comments, shares, just mean everything. And without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. So we're going to look at this in kind of groups of 4. I think that's the best way to kind of analyze where I thought teams would roughly be. And we're going to start with 20th place through 17th place. So in 20th place, I had Leicester City. In 19th, I had Southampton. In 18th, I had Everton. And in 17th, I had Southampton. So immediately off rip, I was really wrong about Southampton. In my defense, the playoff final really lived long in my memory because they put in such a defensively solid counter-attacking performance against Leeds. And I was really impressed. I was like, well, if they can do both sides of the game, they have a real chance of staying up in the Prem. They couldn't do any side of the game in the Prem. Russell Martin, I still do think, to be honest, is a decent manager, but his reluctance to go to a more defensive style, system and shape cost him ultimately his job and cost Southampton the start of the season they would have needed to have any chance of staying up. And yeah, that's probably the standout disappointment so far. I did have Everton down, and in fairness, had they not brought in David Moyes, I think they could have went down. Obviously, at the start of the season, you can't predict things like that. But yeah, I think overall, I got 2 of the relegated teams down, and I should have really just played it safe and put Southampton down as well. But I fell in love with the coach. What can I say? Pause. Okay, so the next group of teams I've got down here, Wolves in 16th, Nottingham Forest in 15th, we will talk about that, Brentford in 14th, and Bournemouth in 13th place. Now, first thing that stands out is obviously Nottingham Forest. They ended up finishing 7th, and I've got them 15th. However, I think I have them higher than most people. A lot of my friends had them to go down. A lot of people I work with had them either 17th or 18th. So me thinking they were definitely going to be safe, I'm taking that as a small positive. Even though I've got them 8 places off, I'm taking that as a small positive because I saw the players and I thought, there's no way they're going down with that group of players. I really liked what Chris Wood had done in the second half of last season. Morgan Gibbs-White, I think is a great player for that system and that team. I wouldn't really buy him if I was Man City, but that's a separate talking point. But I knew Morgan Gibbs-White was good. They had dynamic wide players. They had a strong defense, and then they added Milenkovic to that. So I had no reason to believe Forest would go down. So I was quite surprised when a lot of people were predicting them that. So yeah, whilst I was very wrong about where they would finish, I was right in my belief that they'd be nowhere near relegation. I got Wolves bang on. It was looking a bit tumultuous there at the start of the season. They did not start the season well, but then Cunha picked up form. They've just got like a really solid team. Gomez in the midfield. Semedo at right back really came alive in the second half of the season. I just think it's just Wolves, isn't it? It's just Wolves, isn't it? Like, they're just solid. So I had Brentford 14th, they finished 10th. Bournemouth 13th, they ended up finishing 9th. And yeah, Bournemouth are definitely, I would argue, the surprise package of the season. I think Bournemouth, a lot of people thought, could they fall back into that yo-yo kind of status? And they did not. And Antonio Raiola, tremendous job at Bournemouth. Even though they're going to lose quite a few of their players this summer, it would appear, I think they'll be back next season and be fine. So in 12th place, I had Fulham. In 11th, I had Brighton. In 10th, I had Crystal Palace. And in 9th, I had West Ham United. Yeah, not great on that West Ham shout. Fulham, I was only one place off. I think that was a pretty easy one to predict. I think they started the season hot, but some regression was going to be expected. I think they're a solid team. I like Marco Silva, the coach. I really do. Obviously, Emil Smith Rowe, former Gunner, started the season on fire. I know everyone in FPL was very happy with that start to the season. But ultimately, look, they don't spend enough to be challenging for that top 10, which is completely fair. Like, just run your club the best way you can, stay being a Premier League team. That's a massive achievement. So, good season for Fulham. Crystal Palace, I really missed a trick by not just putting them 12th, as they always finish. I was a bit higher on them, and in a way, I kind of backed myself on that because second half of the season, they were excellent, went on to win the FA Cup. So I bought into Glasner and his Palace side early, so I'm counting that as a minor W, even though it's slightly out on the table. So Brighton in 11th, we're going to talk more about that in the second part of the video, where I look at some like award predictions and like kind of storyline stuff. But yeah, they had another solid season, as they seem to do now every season. Just really probably the best ran club in England. And then West Ham, who ended up finishing 14th. I had them 9th. So not super far off, but having them above clubs like Palace, Bournemouth, Brentford, not great in hindsight. Jared Bowen was a lot of the reasoning for that, and he had a tremendous season, but even he wasn't enough to kind of pull them into that top half of the table conversation. I think it'll be a big, big summer for West Ham because they do look like one of the more vulnerable teams in the Premier League right now. On to the next set of four, which I've just seen is by far the worst set of four. I had Chelsea in 8th place, Aston Villa in 7th, Spurs in 6th, and Manchester United in 5th. Maybe I should just quit my job because I don't know ball, apparently. In my defence, not one soul thought Spurs and Man United would finish where they finished. I'm sure some people would have predicted them to finish 9th, 10th, but no one had them bottom half of the table. Everyone thought they've had an awful season last season. They're going to invest. They did invest very early in the window. They're going to be back. You know, Ugarte was going to be the guy for Man United. You know, he's going to be the one to solidify that midfield and allow Bruno to push on. And all this I was hearing, and I kind of believed it. Not that I didn't believe they'd be great, as evidence from the fact that I didn't have them in the Champions League spots at the start of the season. But no one saw 17th place, trophyless, losing to Tottenham in a European final. That's embarrassing. As for Chelsea and Aston Villa, Chelsea, in all honesty, I didn't think would be as good as they have been. And Aston Villa, quite frankly, I didn't think were going to be great, you know? Obviously, 7th in the Prem is a great place to finish, but in comparison to the other teams, in comparison to what people were saying, you know, they were like, oh, Villa could really challenge for like top 3. I know some people predicted Villa to come like 3rd in their standings, and that I just never saw that. I think for Villa, ultimately, this is what they should aspire to be, which is consistent European team. You know, it's very hard to be in the Premier League. So yeah, I think only being one off there on Villa, I was pretty accurate in my assessment at the start of the season. But finally, on to my top 4. So, in 4th place, I had Newcastle. In 3rd place, I had Liverpool. In 2nd place, I had Manchester City, which means in 1st place, I had Arsenal winning the Premier League. So I'm going to let you get your laughs out now. Feel free. You can laugh all you want. I predicted Arsenal to win the league. Sue me, all right? Arsenal are my club. If they're contending, even if going into the season they're objectively not as good as another team, if they have a chance, I'm always going to put them first. They're my guys. I have to back them. In all honesty, I did 100% in my heart believe that Arsenal would finish above Man City, which they did. I would have assumed that meant they win the league, though. Was not expecting Liverpool to be so good. I mean, week after week, just relentless. Their midfield, Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, even Jones when he would play in there. Salah having, you know, probably the best season we've seen in the Prem, alongside Thierry Henry's 24 and 20, probably, in terms of just sheer output. I mean, wow. What a season for Liverpool. You just have to praise them ultimately. And super happy with my Newcastle pick, though. I was really high on Newcastle. A lot of people had them coming 7th, 8th, you know, and I was like, no, I think this team's going to get Champions League football. I think Anthony Gordon, Alexander Isak, I think those two up front are just phenomenal together. And I mean, who would have predicted the contributions that Jacob Murphy would give Newcastle this season? He absolutely balled out. Their fullbacks, Lewis Hall, Tino Livramento, even Trippier when he's had to play, but just excellent depth. And then the centre backs have been great all season. Dan Burn, FPL legend, by the way. And ultimately, when you have a solid team, you're going to do well. And Alexander Isak is just top level. So yeah, those are my table predictions. I'll put on screen my score, which is basically how many positions you were off. Obviously, the lower, the better. I only got 2 teams predicted accurately. So that was Ipswich and that was Wolves. I got a few teams like one off, but I think it'll be a pretty bad season for me because I got quite a few teams like Spurs, West Ham, Man United, Nottingham Forest, 5 or more off. But yeah, ultimately, I think a lot of unpredictable stuff happened this season. A lot of stuff, in fairness, I couldn't have predicted, but there were some bad shouts in there for sure. Why was I so high on West Ham? It's a mystery. But we're going to now get into some award predictions and kind of like storyline stuff that I predicted that would happen throughout the season. And we're going to start off with who I thought would get the most goals this season. I thought it would be Erling Haaland. I mean, come on, like, everyone thought it would be Erling Haaland, right? And in fairness, he still had a really good season. I think he ended with 22 goals, which is great, and was third in the league. But for his high standards that he set, nowhere near his best this season. Obviously, the top scorer in the league was Mohamed Salah. So, whilst I wasn't too far off, wasn't right. Then we have top assister. I had Bukayo Saka, and for the first 15 games, I was bang on the money. He was assisting at such a rate where he was going to smash the record of De Bruyne and Henry's 20 assists. Then he got injured and missed 3 months of the season, so we'll never really know if he would have carried on that rate. Salah, again, obviously finished with the most assists, but to be fair, I'm going to count that as a slight win, because until his injury, he was the top assister in the league. Finally, a complete spot-on prediction, most clean sheets in the league. I had David Raya. David Raya got the most clean sheets in the league. This Arsenal defence now has built a reputation on being one of the best in Europe, the best in the Premier League, and I didn't see any reason why that would change. Raya had an outstanding season. I thought he was good last season, but Saliba and Gabriel and Ben White being so good really made it an easier job for him. That wasn't the case this season. Gabriel missed time. Saliba wasn't as good as he has been in recent years. Ben White missed time for injury. It was really down to David Raya that we got points in certain games, like the double save at the start of the season against Ollie Watkins, the double save in the Champions League against Atalanta. Some of the saves like against Man United, clawing the ball away from Bruno Fernandes. Like, he had a phenomenal season. I think Matt Sells, who shared the award with him, also great goalkeeper, but I think it's not even a question. David Raya was the best goalkeeper in the league this season. Signing of the season. This is a super rogue shout from me, potentially based a little bit in FPL thinking. I had Jan Kuba Minter from Brighton. Reason being, he was on loan at Feyenoord from Newcastle last season, and I would constantly see on Twitter like clips of him like scoring or like dribbling past someone and getting an assist, and I was like, oh, he's doing well. And I thought he was just going to be the guy for Brighton, In fairness, he had a good season. I wouldn't say anything special. I wouldn't say anywhere near signing of the season level, but I do think he can push on next season. I think the signing of the season is, without question, Nikola Milenkovic. I mean, £12 million from Fiorentina. Nottingham Forest got one of the best centre-halves in the league. An outstanding signing. Probably team of the season shouts in terms of him as a player. On to an absolutely outstanding shout from me. Young player of the season, I had Morgan Rogers. So a lot of people hadn't heard of Morgan Rogers this season going into it. A lot of people, if they had thought, oh, he's a decent player. I have been super, super high on Morgan Rogers for years. Going back to when he was at Man City's academy and he left to join Bournemouth. I thought that was a really great move, but didn't quite work out. So then he moved on to Middlesbrough, where he was just phenomenal. If you got to catch any of the Middlesbrough games when he was tearing it up in the first half of the season prior to this one, electric stuff. And I was not shocked at all when Aston Villa bought him in January. You know, he just has the body of someone way beyond his years, physicality he brings, driving at defenders is scary at times, able to just hold people off, you know, body people and then keep the ball with his great dribbling. What a player. Had a great season this season, doing it in the Champions League, scoring a hat-trick in the Champions League. It's just crazy at his age. And yeah, definitely for me, the young player of the season. Honourable mention to Miles Lewis-Skelly, who I think if he had played some more games would have been. But yeah, those two, definitely the young players of the season. We're on a bit of a roll here because flop of the season, I had Rasmus Højlund. And that seems like an obvious statement now, but in the summer it was not. In the summer, all we heard about Højlund was, you know, he was raw in his first Premier League season, but he's still done well in the second half of it. He's going to carry that on. He's got the number 9 shirt now. This is our guy. And I looked at everyone saying that, especially my Man United friends. You know who you are. And I said, this guy is just not ready for Premier League football. And it's not his fault at all. He was bought for £70 million by a club that have no idea what they're doing right now. And that isn't a joke. That isn't trying to have a dig at United. They just have no clue what they're doing. They bought this guy and thought he was going to be an immediate starting caliber forward in the Premier League. It was never going to happen. He was so raw at Atalanta. Anyone that even watched highlights could see it, let alone if you're a scout and you've seen whole games. I don't know what the thinking was there. And going into this season, everyone was really getting on the hype train. And I said, no, he is going to be bad. And he actually was even worse than I thought. Definitely worse than Man United fans could even dream of. And it's a shame, but I was right on that one. Flop of the season, definitely Rasmus Højlund is up there. Biggest underachievers. Not really right on this one, but also not wrong. I had Brighton. The thinking was a lot of people going into the summer were saying, you know, this is the year that Brighton take that next step. You know, they'd been Europe, challenging for Europe for a couple years, and this is the season they're going to, you know, challenge for top 4, come like 5th, maybe. I didn't see it. I had them 11th in my predictions. They obviously didn't finish 11th. They finished 8th. So I think if they had finished a bit lower, I think I'd have more of a leg to stand on. Yeah, I was wrong on that one, to be fair. Yeah, I was wrong. The biggest overachievers, I had Newcastle, and I'm going to give myself a small dub on that one. I think they definitely were one of the overachieving teams in the Prem. I don't think you can say biggest overachievers given what Nottingham Forest have done, but I think Newcastle, compared to what people were saying, which was like, you know, 9th, 8th kind of range, finishing in a Champions League position, which I predicted. What a great season for them, and they're going to be back in the Champions League next year. First manager sacked. I was wrong on this one, but not too wrong at all. I had Steve Cooper, Leicester City, who I obviously had, you know, getting relegated. I thought he just didn't seem like he was really taken to by the fan base and the ownership, and, you know, it's kind of a weird appointment. But yeah, the first manager sacked was Erik ten Hag. You know, again, saying it now, it seems predictable, but at the time, no one thought Man United would be as bad as they were. But I'm not mad at writing the Leicester manager to be first sacked. But yeah, that's it. That is my Premier League 2024-25 predictions done. And I think on the whole, I've done all right. Some howlers, for sure, don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect, but I think some cool shouts in there. Morgan Rogers, David Raya, Newcastle. But I will be doing a predictions video when the new Premier League season starts in August. So please stay tuned for that. And yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this content, I've got loads more videos on the channel and loads more videos coming. I've got football videos banked that are going to be releasing once a week for the next 3 weeks. So please stay tuned for those if you enjoy those as well. And as always, it's been me, Josh, for JRM Productions, signing out.